Welcome to Ask Me How I Know, multifamily real estate investing stories of struggle to success, where each week unscripted interviews with guests bring a fresh perspective to problem solving in the multifamily niche, as well as feed your mindset. Success stories are great, but everyone knows the important part of the story, the part between the struggles of starting and arriving, and it often gets left out. Ask Me How I Know is like the back house of a restaurant. Pass through the prim and proper front of the house and join us in the harmonious chaos of the back of the house where honest, unscripted conversations take place and transformation happens. In life and investing, there are no shortages of wild scenarios, so no matter where you are in your investment journey, this podcast is for you. There is no pomp and fanfare here, just endless opportunity to build your investing and mindset playbooks. This is your retreat to breathe, build, and laugh. Welcome to Ask Me How I Know. I'm Julie Holly, and I'm happy you're here. Welcome back to Ask Me How I Know, multifamily investment stories of struggle to success. And today we have somebody I really appreciate so much. You don't always know the little fingerprint people are going to put in your life until time passes on, and Michael Zuber is one of those people. I have been watching you for over a year now, and he's already successful on so many different levels, but it's been so amazing to watch him grow and progress and launch a book and launch a new business, just cause, why not? So I was just explaining to Michael, like, hey, this is like a restaurant, and, we're going to just stay in the back half where all the chaos is. And I just want to make sure everybody understands that if you want to hear testimonies of anyone I'm interviewing, you want to go to the show notes and you want to look and, I'm going to leave hyperlinks to other podcasts where maybe I met them or I know they've been on, because there's so many great podcasts. So we're going to look at this from a different angle, and it's going to be so exciting.
Yeah, this is going to be fun. The back of the house. I like it.
The back of the house. Okay, so let's see what is dropping and crashing and banging. So, over the last year, there's so many ways I wanted to take this. I'm like, man, you launched a book. That is, if a man's going to experience childbirth, I'm pretty sure that's the closest thing.
Yeah. Launching a book. Well, first off, I'm not going to compare it to childbirth. My wife would lynch me, I'm sure, if I did that. So we're not going there. But it is extremely hard. Especially, I guess everybody has their own story. But I was that kid in high school who never read a book. Right? They had Cliff Notes back in the day. Those little yellow books. English was my worst subject. I would do everything I can to miss that class. So I'm not a great writer. I'm still not a great writer, but I can get my ideas out, which turned out to be not that difficult because, again, I was lucky enough to retire financially free at 45, and I spent 4 or 5 weeks just kind of putting our story on paper, right? And when it's your story, it's relatively easy, but that's where this gets nasty. Because I'm not a great writer, it was written kind of how I talk, which is not I'm not great at this stuff, right? So that's what happens. And then I go off and I realize I have to have an editor. So I hire a New York editor, right? Yeah, you got to hire first my New York editor because he was recommended by someone else who wrote a business book.
An editor, and that took read red. They are, they're ruthless, and they need to be.
Yeah, so. Yeah. Unfortunately, this individual was so ruthless. He killed my voice, which it's my book, right? So I'm like, after like 8 weeks of just sheer torture, I said thank you very much and went right back to the original draft. I'm like, no, if this is going to happen, it's going to be my voice, or it's just not going to happen. So we did that, and then I got a little more focused. Found an editor, this time on my own. Interviewed them. And I gave him a chapter, and still read, but at least it was still my voice.
Right.
So we ended up doing it again. So I ended up paying 2 different New York editors, four figures, to turn my life story, at least investing story, into something. And the editing process took almost over 5 months from
Right.
when I sort of put the last pen down to kind of getting somewhere. So that was, I'll just say it like it is. That was absolutely no fun whatsoever. I mean, there was never a good day when you get an email from the editor with another slash and burn. So
Yeah.
that was rough. That was no fun.
What held you together through that process? Because I do a lot of writing, and so I've worked with a lot of editors, and man, yeah, it can get brutal. You have something you want to
Yeah.
say. What kept you solid?
Well, I actually had no intentions of publishing this thing either. That's the crazy thing.
It was just like a
Uh,
little family archive moment, like
yeah, it was. I
scrapbook.
wanted because I made so many mistakes on my journey to financial freedom. One of them was I never got to celebrate any of the wins.
Oh
Right, I
wow,
just kept going because I was working 60, 80, 100-hour weeks and doing this real estate thing. I never got to step back and go, wow, we did that. So
wow.
the book was for us, really for me. My wife still hasn't read it. It's been 2 years. She still hasn't read it because she's like, I lived it. Why would I read it? I'm like, okay, good idea. So I wrote it for myself just to document it, and then I had some
Right.
people read it, and they're like, there's something here. So we added a couple more chapters, and we ended up publishing it on Amazon. But I kept going because I wanted something I would be proud of,
That's
and yeah, the goal was to really create something that could help people. And I credit in the book Rich Dad Poor Dad, but it does a great job of changing mindset. But to your point, it doesn't talk about the back of the house,
yeah.
right? It talks about getting the mindset ready. It talks about rental properties being good, and I bought it all in. But it didn't tell me his story, how he went from that first house or condo in Honolulu that he talks about. It doesn't talk about where he went next.
Right.
So that's why I wanted to write this book. I wanted to write the book as kind of the complement to Rich Dad Poor Dad. Okay, I'm on the journey, but here are all our steps, ups and downs. And oh, by the way, we happen to invest before the crash. We happen to be reposition ourselves at the peak. We
Mhm.
were uber aggressive during the crash. And I think people should hear the story because there's lots of stuff in there that went right and went wrong. And um, if you've read Rich Dad Poor Dad and thought to yourself, "But how?" This is the but
Exactly.
how.
I hope everybody listening and watching this, and I'll leave a little link, big link below. Little or big doesn't matter. I'm just gonna leave a link below so y'all can go and order this book. It is absolutely fantastic, and I really loved the analogy of the alligator. So Zuber has this thing where it's like, don't buy an alligator, and it's really something that every one of us. I mean, we're all, especially if you're new at investing, you just want that deal so badly, and you
Yeah,
might, overextend yourself and then get swallowed up, paying
yeah,
the alligator every month.
they're no fun. Again, never buy and or create an alligator, right? So the story in the book it goes like this. First off, I'm introduced to the alligator concept from a friend of mine who was an executive in an organization. And he took me in his office and he goes to a whiteboard and he goes, "Look, I can afford 4 negative cash flow properties." I'm like, what are you doing? I mean, I don't, that's like hurts my head. But this is how crazy the market was, right? Appreciation was everywhere. Real estate never goes down. I mean, this was a mindset. And I'm afraid we're there again in other parts of the market. But the idea is, hey, yeah, you can't go wrong with real estate. So I'm going to buy 4 negative cash flows. I got this big Uber job and I can survive. Well, that's where I knew that negative cash flow wasn't painful enough. It needed to be nasty. So I created this idea of an alligator because an alligator will just eat. And
Right.
in the book, it's the one image I had created. I have an alligator eating bags full of money because that's what I want you to think about. But know this:
Right.
I actually never bought an alligator, but I created an alligator because I stupidly thought, hey, banks are conservative. They won't let me create a negative cash flow property. Wrong. Right. I did my first cash out refi and they said, how much money do you want? I'm like, all of it.
Oh, hey.
I didn't know. Right.
Right.
Why ask me? So I took all of it. And then pretty much, the next month and the month after and the month after, I'm going, why do I have to keep reaching into my savings account to pay this freaking mortgage? Oh, I freaking created an alligator. Stupid. Man, that was so dumb. So, yeah, I have learned that banks aren't conservative. They will loan you as more than they should,
Boy, that,
and yeah, it's
especially if everything's hot and you have great credit and you have a great history and everything, they're like,
yeah,
sure, we'll give you extra
yeah,
money. Yeah, you're a great person. Here you
you're good for it. Yeah,
Yeah. I can't remember. Did you guys end up selling that place? Is
we
that
did. We ended up 1031 exchanging that place. So the story turns out okay, right? So it's an alligator for us for about 18 months, which
oh gosh.
sucked every month. But then we ended up 1031ing all the equity out, moving it into a small apartment building, which we still own today. So it has a good story at the end, but never buy or create alligators. And in hot markets like we are today, it's easy to do. You can lie. Your Excel spreadsheets are the greatest liars in the world, right? You can beat those spreadsheets up
You're a
and
numbers person and you're
yeah,
saying that. I might quote you.
go for it. Yeah, Excel spreadsheets, you could build it up. You could ratchet down expenses. You could make an Excel spreadsheet say everything, and unfortunately, sometimes you can make Excel spreadsheets lie,
Wow.
and they'll do it. They'll lie to you if you let them.
I think that message needs to get out there right now. I haven't heard anyone talking about that, but that's
Well, when you're in the back of the house and you realize that you did it to yourself, yeah, it hurts.
oh gosh, it hurts. Yeah, and the whip every single month, the pain of it, like pay for this, pay for your. It's like
It's like a lashing every month. Whack, whack,
like a
dummy. Whack.
investor purgatory or something. We can make some memes about this.
There you go. Go for it.
Oh my gosh. Well, so over the last year, okay, there are two areas we have to talk about. And one
Sure.
is, oh my gosh, you have had like fires and break-ins and all
Yeah.
sorts of like craziness happening on your rentals. And I'm just, I would love to hear how your solutions. And I've kind of seen bits and pieces of that because I
Yeah.
love following and cheering you on. But
Thank you. Yeah, this real estate investing game, flipping and being a landlord's never. The back of the house is real. I mean, so we'll just kind of go reverse order, right? So the
yeah,
most recent thing that is would be traumatic and stress people out is I was flipping a property, which means it's vacant, right?
right.
So I spent, so this is just a little 2-bedroom, 1-bath house, probably built in 1950s. It's in a so-so area, call it a solid C area.
Okay.
But unfortunately, it backs up to an alley, and that's what got me on this one. Is people are just running through the alley and realized that the house was vacant, jumped the fence, so they're not really seen from the street, and broke in, and they were destructive on purpose. So they took out a big felt tip marker, right? The inch, right, and wrote all over my new
Hard
floors.
time with that.
Yeah, they wrote all over the new floors. They actually physically unscrewed the cabinets and stole the cabinets. They broke the tiles in the bathrooms, probably with a hammer or a small sledgehammer. They did human bodily functions on the rugs in the bedrooms. They were just nasty. And before you say it, we had alarms. They just took it off the wall. We had guards go by 3 times a night. And yeah, this stuff can happen. And we basically had to do the remodel twice.
Oh my gosh. How does that I'm sorry. It just like seriously sucks the wind out of my
Yeah.
being. Like just the pain of that and everything. So how do I how does that work? I don't even like did you have to shell out twice? Do you have
Yes.
insurance for it?
So I had insurance. I could have probably done an insurance claim, but I have so many properties. I'm not really interested in increasing my premiums across them.
Really?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, thank you. So I just sucked it up and did the remodel twice. We put on more security measures. We actually moved somebody in,
Right.
so they were there. I mean, so we found ways to not make sure it didn't happen again.
Oh my gosh.
And that's just a cost of doing business. If you're going to be flipping in C areas, once your house gets known as being vacant, you become a target, and you need to plan for it. I should have planned better. I still think the house is a nice investment. I'm glad it's done. We have people living there now. They're wildly happy. We did the remodel to my level,
Right.
which was pride of ownership. So yeah, it is. I just hate it when people in the media, specifically politicians, think all landlords are greedy.
Oh,
I
seriously.
would love to send them that video and say, well, what do you think now?
Oh,
uh, so I did a video of it just so I have it. So if anybody ever gets in my face again about that, well, here you go.
right.
What do you think? What do you think of this? Because yeah, it's not good. And but I'll own it for the rest of my life potentially, and
Mm-hmm.
three,
And
4 or 5 years from now, I'll forget it ever happened.
yeah, yeah, the painful lessons. That, and everyone watching and listening. I hope you like when you pick up Zuber's book, you're going to get the essence of this whole pride and ownership coming through consistently throughout, and that's something that solid investors who have low vacancy rates, they have that pride of ownership. And I'm just going to give you a plug because I really enjoyed your book a lot, and I could hear
I
your
appreciate
voice in it, and it's easy to digest. You have big thoughts in there that make you think, but it's fun and a little painful at times watching the story, reading it. But one of the things I remember you were talking about, one of the homes you were working on, and you always, you were starting on the outside of the house
Yep.
to increase that curb appeal and get people interested in asking questions. So
Hmm.
you have so many great gems in the telling of your story that
Thank you.
everyone will enjoy.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, and that concept, I was going to ask you if you ended up having somebody come and stay. I remember when I was in residential real estate, I was literally showing property, like, little blonde girl showing property. And we go upstairs in this, and it was a foreclosed home. We go
Uh,
upstairs, and there are squatters in the closet. And I'm glad I was with a veteran and things, because I'm thinking, golly, and they were benign, but
yeah.
still, like you just never know.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
so having
I was very aggressive during the downturn, and I would say 80% of the stuff we bought had squatters coming by at least at night, if not trying to claim it was theirs during the day. So it was bad, and I don't know what it is with porn, but porn was always there. It was always thrown out on the ground and stuff. It's crazy. I don't know. Anyways, it was some of the most disgusting things I've ever seen was during the crash. Yeah.
oh, it's wild. So when you look at the market coming up, I mean,
Mm.
you just look at the trends, everything going on. I mean, and if you've
Yep.
lived the cycles before, you see the writing on the wall. You know where we're at.
Yep.
Flush out's coming.
Yeah.
So
Oh, it's coming. Yeah.
it's coming, and hopefully everybody's positioned so they're not going to go down the toilet. But just anyhow, but what would you say? What advice would you give to people right now to, if they're already
Yeah.
invested,
Yep.
what should they do to button down the hatches?
So if you're already invested, you know, make sure your debt structure is correct, right? It's pretty easy with residential because you can get 30-year fixed money and you're going to be happy, right? It'll have a 3-year run. If you're in multifamily, this is the time to read. And like, let's say you had a multifamily investment, 3, 5, 7-year term on the loan, right? If you're in like year 3 or 4 of it, I would certainly look at redoing my debt structure today because I am very loudly screaming through the hills that I think residential real estate will be okay this time, but it's going to be the multifamily market that suffers.
Hmm.
So do yourself a favor, get your debt structure in place, go get a new 7-year term, or if you can get a 10, because there's going to be so much pain in the multifamily market in 2 to 4 years. So much pain that I believe LPs are going to first see less preferred returns, then they're going to have capital calls, then they're going to be put in a situation to double their term, went from 5 to 10 years. Some are going to be forced to sell because of life events, and it is going to be messy. If you can, if you're in a position like I am, I will have more capital than I've had in my entire investing career by the end of the year.
Oh, you're
Because
just like, bring it on.
yeah, bring it on, baby. I bought 18-unit buildings, zero down. I bought 2 10-unit buildings, zero down during the last crash, so I know what's coming. And unfortunately, this is the real unfortunate part. I'm in the market every day. I talk all the time about real estate, and I can see the masses coming. I saw the masses last time, and this is a big part of our book. The reason we survived the crash and ultimately had financial freedom is we got out of houses the year it peaked, right? We did a bunch of 1031 exchanges and went from 8 to 80 units. And then when the crash came, sure, my net worth was down because everything fell. But I don't spend my net worth. I spend cash flow. So we were fine, right? Cash flow went up. So what's going to happen next is residential is going to be fine because, real lending and real down payments and all of that stuff. But multifamily, because it is so easy to do equity raises and, banks are coming in at 55, 60% firsts, it's the equity that's going to get crushed. Because when you take a 3.5 or 3.8 or 4.1 cap rate and that explodes to 6.5, and then you go back to refi it, guess who gets squeezed? Well, that's the equity that gets squeezed. Yeah. So it is going to be messy. If you are one of the herd coming, I am so vocal. I'm actually selling deals. I'm selling my apartments now because all of you guys want to overpay and create Excel spreadsheets with 25% expenses and just stupid, idiotic things. So if you want to overpay a couple $100,000 for my stuff, take it. I'll 1031 back to houses. It's okay.
Right. I have heard other people echoing what you're saying. That whole adage of like, hey, when the tide rolls out, we'll see who's swimming naked. Because like you were saying, the Excel spreadsheets, they can lie. And I completely agree with you. I think that the multifamily space, it sounds very highbrow and very lovely to lots of LPs. And so it's just like, oh, I'm part of this and part of that. And they're just.
I hope you feel the same way in 3 years when your 118 units in Texas is suddenly worth half what you thought it was. And we'll see what you think then.
Yeah. We'll see. I mean, it is a realistic thing, where you're wondering, writing, conservative, being conservative with everything, but.
Yeah. This is the biggest fallacy, and this drives me crazy because again, talk about back of the house, front of the house. Right? The front of the house.
I love back of the house.
Yeah, the front of the house looks all good, and all these people are doing deals. But here's the deal, right? Multifamily market has never been this crowded, right? Grant Cardone single-handedly made syndication sexy. Good for him, right?
Yeah.
And but now with prices and prices up, cap rates down,
right?
There are. There's unicorn deals out there, but today you have to find a unicorn sitting on a rainbow with a 4-leaf clover in his mouth they're out there. Sure.
Yeah.
But all these social media people talking about, just close another 118 units, another 312 units. Mm-hmm. I guarantee you 90% of the deals being done in 2020 will be bad deals. Think about that. 90%.
This is like
the peak, people.
06.
Unemployment has never been this low, right? It's 3.5, 0.4, whatever it is. What is going to happen in your market when unemployment goes to 6? It will happen. Will it happen this year? No. Will it happen next year? Probably not. Will it happen the year after? We'll see. People, you guys are not getting it. Occupancy versus effective occupancy are two different numbers. I owned apartments in the last downturn. Sure, my buildings were full, but they were not effectively full. They had 30% people not paying, right? You have such skinny deals being done now with ludicrous expenses. You can afford 2 turns in a month. You guys are gonna go broke. It's gonna be ugly.
I love back of the house. I love back of the house honest talk. More people need it. So what would you say to all of my multifamily people out there? Like, what would you say? Because I love how you have been on every side of this. You've done single family, you've done multifamily. So would you say, hey guys, just cash out right now, hold, or do you say cash out by houses?
Well, so this is what I would say. So it's always tough to answer that question because everybody's in a different situation. Right. So if you own and again, let's be clear. When I say you own, I mean you own. I don't mean you're part of the equity and you're one of 30. Yeah, you're not one of 37 people, right? Don't talk to me. That I don't want to talk about that.
Right.
But if you own an apartment building, like I still own apartment buildings. I have gone back and looked at my debt structure and I'm redoing my debt structure. So I always do what I say. Right. Yeah. So I had a couple of years left on a term. I actually ended up having to pay 1 point because there was 1 year left on the prepay. But I was able to get my new debt structure. I actually got a 10-year fix this time.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So, and my interest rate went down slightly, but it recast the loan, right? So my payments are low. So I will be able to survive, 10 years, right? Without having to think about another refi. And again, I own these, meaning my wife and I own these, right? So
Right.
that's good. If I was looking, because again, I still get phone calls from people looking to buy multifamily. I would say if you can find a unicorn standing on a rainbow holding a 4-leaf clover, buy it, right? They're out there. That happens. But most of you are idiots because you're finding a goat with a freaking plunger on his head, sitting in a winter storm, whatever, right? Holding a
He's
weed,
on the
right?
ice and it's about ready to.
Yeah. There's cracks everywhere.
Yeah.
And just stop lying to yourself. You are going to go broke, right? If you're in a position where you actually have some capital and money, I just tell people to do the math. Right? I'll do the math with anyone. The math today on most multifamily versus single family homes, the single family homes win. And believe me, it hurts me to say this. I'm financially free because of apartments, but I'm not an idiot. Do the math. And
Right.
today, because of the debt structure you can put in place with 30-year fixed rate loans with a 3 or 4, you will get a better return with a house. And here's the deal. Yes, multifamily is sexy. Yes, it's fun to tell your friends you own thousands of units. Well, most of y'all don't own thousands of units.
Right.
You own percentages of thousands of units. So stop lying, right? But you can have a better financial future with 4 houses. And I think that's a good goal. I was just in an event on Saturday where I had that message and people came up to me and said, thank you, because everybody hearing Grant Cardone and all the syndicators want to be bigger, 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 bigger.
Yeah.
Stop it. Your life is better if you get 4 single family homes. And then, oh, by the way, do what we did in our book. Let inflation happen, let appreciation happen. And then if you're ready to 1031 in 5 years when the market for multifamily tanks, go ham, go nuts. Because you're going to have the opportunity, I promise you. So I would take cash and buy houses, but I would do the math because maybe you're in a market that I don't know because I don't know all of them. But if the math says a house is better, stop being idiots, throw your ego out the window and go buy a freaking house.
I love I think this is something I've appreciated about you so much. You're passionate and enthusiastic and you just speak truth. And I'm so tired of people blowing smoke and just tooting their own horns and, I just kind of making themselves, like you said, like, oh yeah, I have all this, because we need to be realistic. And sometimes you have to say, like, exactly like you're saying, is what's the best investment?
Do the math.
After our last conversation a year ago, I was, I went back and reevaluated. You really got me thinking. So, so I have no doubt that Steve and I are going to have some really great conversations now.
Awesome.
He'll probably be more the one saying, honey, that's what I've been saying all along.
I like that Mike guy. He's fun.
Exactly. Oh, I totally appreciate it. I have one more area. Do you have time for one more?
I'm here for you.
Adventure? Okay, one more adventure, and that is you have started the Hub. And,
yes.
And there are always, growing pains with making decisions. It's always like we're talking about with the multifamily, like super fun. It's sexy. It's great. But, then there's the back of the house and all the other things to do. So can you tell everybody a little bit about what the Hub is, what you want to do, and then maybe some of the pains that you overcame?
Yeah, so if you really want to see the Hub, go to thehubfresno.com. I actually spent the money and created a website for it. But let's talk about the idea for the Hub first. So again, I've been in real estate and again in my market for nearly 20 years. I have spoken there 50 times, if not more, right? So I can feel the market. Right. And the market is desperate for people that are willing to help, right? Not only educate, but provide almost like full service, if you will. So I was like, okay, I'm lucky enough to be in a position where I could take a gamble, right? I can take a risk. So this is what I was thinking. I was like, okay, can I create a spot where I have no employees? Because again, I'm lucky enough to be in a position where I don't want employees. I don't want growth. I don't want any of the trappings that you see on social media, right? I don't want to do 100 deals a month. I don't want a freaking jet.
You've done corporate life and all that.
I don't.
I'm no longer a special frequent flyer person. I don't have any destination anymore.
I took a picture of my ticket. Look, no status.
I loved that.
Oh, the little things that make me happy. So anyway, so I was like, okay, how can I create a spot that has licensed resources that don't work for me, that work for others? How can I create a spot for real estate entrepreneurs called wholesalers and flippers, and
Right.
turns out Airbnb? I'm like, oh, that's interesting. So I ended up finding a building on a very nice street in my market. It used to be a dentist office, so it already had little offices, and by little I mean like probably 120 square feet. So they're real, they're little, right?
Enough for
But
a little dental chair and this.
yeah, exactly, right. So it's a desk, right? So they get a desk in there, and a couple offices have two. But I'm like, okay, that's interesting. I found the office. I structured a deal like I normally do that I have multiple exits. I end up buying it cash because again, I want to de-risk the situation. I spend another 40 grand remodeling it. But at the end of the day, I have 7 offices. I have 2 licensed real estate agents, work for totally 2 different brokerages. I have a licensed general contractor, which was really important for me because people need licensed general contractors. And then I have 3 wholesalers who are always out there looking for deals because they wanted an office. Now they can say, hey, come see me at my office on Van Ness in McKinley, right? It's legit, right? So, and we went all out, right? I created a $6,000 lighted sign talking about all our services. I put in fake grass because Fresno gets hot. I didn't want to pay water. I striped the parking lot, right? So we did everything to the, to my normal standards. And then we created, we have a high-end flipper who's doing, $500,000 flips in the area that's well branded. And then we brought in a guy who's doing Airbnb. So it is, it's awesome, right? And again, no employees, nobody works for me, nobody, they're all are independent entities, but the collaboration that is going on and the magnitude of the people just coming to the building is increasing. And again, this is, I'm not shy, right? I'm hoping that building produces 1 deal a month for me for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Right. So I get rent from each office, which by the way is not very much because I wanted to attract them there. But again, if I can have that building produce 1 deal a month for the rest of my life, that's worth it. And oh, by the way, if I can help 100 people a month, because again, we can help buyers, investors, sellers. I now have marketing that actually highlights the hub because I want people to come. So I'm not a broker. I'll never be. I don't want employees, right? But again, if you want to talk real estate, I'm here. You want to do creative financing, I'm here. You want to sell it cash, I'm here. You need a general contractor, got one of those. You want to write an offer out of the MLS, got 2 people to pick from. It's thus far, I think it's been open, kind of really open in the last kind of 3 or 4 months, and it's wildly exceeding my expectations already.
I think the market is just so thirsty for people like you thinking outside the box, and we've seen a lot of iterations of residential real estate, but you're creating some. This is
never been done.
It's
everybody. Most people in my position, what they would do is they would let their ego run, and then they would make everybody in that office would report to you, right? You'd have your own little finance arm. You'd have your little insurance brokerage. You'd have your own little real estate. No, I don't. I want them to be independent entities, not work with each other or me, and only have the consumer or the investor to think about. It is absolutely a unique and novel approach.
It's really extraordinary. And I love how you're kind of anti-ego. I'm very much, ego causes so many problems, but what you're also addressing in being anti-ego is the structure of the hub. It just lends itself to people do want to rise to the occasion, and people that are in this industry, they don't want somebody hovering over them. We're all attracted to this because we can gain the financial freedom at our own pace. We can work hard. We're in control. We're in the drive, like so many drivers. And so just by removing yourself, by your lack of
Thank you. Yeah, no, it's ego makes you write checks your ass can't cash for sure.
There are so many good quotes in this. I love it. Oh my goodness. Well, I am so grateful for your time. I just thoroughly enjoy talking with you, and just so everyone knows, I mean, like, I just reached out to you through your YouTube channel. I met you through Michael Blanc's podcast, and I was at that point where I was figuring out, okay, I want to go down multifamily. That's definitely where I want to go. And then I listened to your interview, and it had such an impact. And then, I'm reading, spoke with you and went on your YouTube channel, and you're very accessible and genuine and sincere. And I really appreciate that, because you're a wealth of knowledge. And, we're blessed just to have your book and your podcast and your YouTube channel and everything, but also just super blessed to have you here today. So
thank you, Julie. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Thanks so much for your honesty. Like, seriously, can everybody just be a little more real and honest, please? I'm just going to stay in the back of the house and have this kind of conversation.
Awesome. I look forward to listening to you.
Oh, all right. Until next time. Hey, everybody, make sure you check out Zuber over at all of his special magical places where there are rainbows and unicorns and forest clovers. I will have links, everywhere that you're, listening or watching this. There will be links down there as well as other resources that you will absolutely love.
Thanks so much for joining me for another episode of Ask Me How I Know. My guests are the most humble successes, so be sure to show them your appreciation by rating this episode 5 stars, which sounds silly, but let's be real. Ratings, likes, and shares, they take no time at all, but make all the difference in the world, if only to boost morale. Also, since I don't spend time on the how and why they got into investing, be sure to check out the show notes to get to know more about today's guests, including other podcasts they've been on that has a more traditional format that will give other details about their investment journey. It'll also tell you things like the most influential person in their life and what they're reading right now, as well as how to connect with them. And please, subscribe and rate Ask Me How I Know so it reaches other listeners like you. Until next time, go find your freedom.